All right, everyone, get ready for a wild ride, because today we're diving deep into The Silent Patient. This psychological thriller is a total page-turner, and you won't want to miss a single twist.
Yeah, this book is really unique. It's a story within a story.
Exactly, we're seeing everything through Theo's eyes. He's a psychotherapist who becomes totally fixated on Alicia Berenson. She's a famous painter who shoots her husband and then just goes silent, won't speak a word.
And the way Alex Michaelides, the author, throws us right into the mystery with that opening scene is brilliant. It's just so dramatic. Imagine you find Alicia covered in blood next to her dead husband, a knife right there beside her. Seems pretty straightforward, right?
But not so fast. Something feels off. Staged, almost. There's just way too much blood for a simple suicide attempt.
Right. And that's the author's genius. Right from the start, he plants the seed of doubt, and as a reader, you're instantly hooked. You know something isn't right.
Okay, so let's jump ahead to a scene that really grabbed me. Alicia's in treatment, and she creates this self-portrait. She calls it Alcestis, after a figure from Greek mythology.
Yes, Alcestis. Now, for those who might not be familiar, she's a tragic figure known for her self-sacrifice. She basically gives up her life to save her husband.
And the painting itself is intense. Alicia paints herself naked, with the paintbrush dripping what looks like blood, and she's staring right at you.
Whoa! Yeah, the symbolism is impossible to miss, right? Both Alcestis and Alicia are trapped in silence. Alcestis, because she's returned from death, and Alicia, after taking a life, makes you wonder if Alicia sees herself in this mythical figure, like maybe she sees herself as a victim too.
It's chilling, for sure. So we have this unsettling painting, a silent patient seemingly screaming through her art, and then we have Theo, who's obsessed with getting Alicia to talk.
But here's the catch. Theo's not some objective observer. He's carrying his own baggage, a troubled past that keeps coming back to haunt him throughout the story.
Which makes you think, right, how much of Theo's desire to help Alicia is actually about him, you know? Maybe he needs validation or has a savior complex.
Exactly. And Michaelides reveals all these layers of Theo's character through flashbacks of his own therapy sessions. You start to question everything you're seeing through Theo's eyes. Can we really trust him? Is he a reliable narrator?
That's what makes this book so good. Just when you think you're getting a grasp on things, Michaelides throws a curveball. Like when Theo starts digging into Alicia's past, talking to people who knew her before the tragedy.
We see Alicia through so many different perspectives. It's fascinating. Her brother-in-law, Max, describes her as this fragile person. Her art dealer, Jean-Felix, sees her as this passionate, creative genius. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with pieces that just don't fit.
And then there's this creepy detail that keeps popping up. Alicia keeps saying she feels like someone's watching her. She even writes about it in her diary and tells other people about this eerie feeling.
Oh, yeah. And this is where things start to get really interesting. Remember how Alicia was seeing a different therapist, Christian, before she went to the Grove?
Right. And as Theo digs deeper, he uncovers that Christian was treating Alicia privately for years. And conveniently forgot to mention that tiny detail when he joined the Grove staff.
Major red flag. What's he hiding? Why all the secrecy? Makes you wonder if Christian wants to keep Alicia quiet to protect himself somehow.
This just adds fuel to the fire. The tension's building, and Theo is getting closer to the truth. But with each step forward, there's another obstacle.
The suspense is masterful. It's like walking through a maze, and every time you think you found the way out, you hit a dead end. And just when Theo feels like he's hit a wall, bam, he stumbles upon something that totally changes the game. Alicia's hidden diary.
Oh man, that diary is like a direct line to Alicia's deepest fears and anxieties. So raw, so vulnerable, and honestly pretty terrifying.
Right. And remember, this isn't the diary Alicia gives to Theo. This one's way more personal, filled with entries she never meant for anyone to see.
It's in these pages that we really see what Alicia was going through in the days leading up to the murder. She talks about feeling paranoid, like she's constantly being watched, and then she describes this terrifying break-in that leaves her totally shaken.
But here's the catch. The diary just ends abruptly. It's like a record that suddenly stopped. We're left hanging, wondering what happened next. What finally pushed Alicia to do something so drastic?
Talk about a cliffhanger. It's like Michaelides is playing with us, keeping us on the edge of our seats.
He's a master of pacing, for sure. He knows how to keep us hooked, giving us just enough to keep us going, and then pulling back, letting the tension build.
Absolutely. And speaking of tension, let's talk about Theo's personal life. His relationship with Kathy is like a whole other layer to this messed up story.
Oh, yeah. Their relationship is classic codependency. Theo's insecurities and controlling behavior are constantly clashing with Kathy's free spirit.
And then there's that moment when Theo finds those emails on Kathy's computer. It's brutal.
Right, that discovery totally shatters the illusion of control that Theo's built around himself. He spirals into this jealousy and paranoia, convinced that Kathy's cheating on him.
It's painful to see him fall apart, like that he gets so caught up in his suspicions that he starts neglecting his work at the Grove, putting his work with Alicia at risk.
And his behavior just gets more and more erratic and reckless. Remember that scene at the National Theater where he confronts Kathy?
Oh, yeah.
He accuses her of lying, demand that she break up with this supposed lover. It's intense, filled with raw emotion and barely controlled anger.
You can feel the pressure building like it's about to explode, and in a way it does. That confrontation pushes Theo over the edge, and he turns to the one person he thinks he can trust, his old therapist, Ruth.
Ruth's like this voice of reason. In all the chaos, she tries to pull Theo back from the brink, encouraging him to face his own demons, to see how his childhood trauma is affecting his relationships now.
She really wants him to break free from that cycle of self-destruction. She urges him to make choices that will heal him, not destroy him.
But Theo's not ready to listen. He's too obsessed with Alicia, caught up in this fantasy he's created around her.
It's tragic. You can see how much he wants to be the hero, but he's blinded by his need to control everything.
And that blindness leads him down a dangerous path. He gets fixated on finding the man who is stalking Alicia. Alicia convinced that this guy holds the key to understanding her silence. He throws himself into his own investigation, digging into Alicia's past, talking to anyone who might have known her.
But the deeper he digs, the more he uncovers secrets and lies. Things that threaten to unravel everything he thought he knew, and the line between his professional life and his personal life disappears completely.
His obsession with Alicia consumes him completely, leading him to make choices that put his own life and the lives of the people around him in danger.
And just when you think things can't get any crazier, Michael Ides throws another curveball.
The stuff in Alicia's hidden diaries starts to paint a very different picture of what happened leading up to the murder.
It's like we're seeing the story through a broken mirror. We're getting glimpses of the truth, but it's distorted, fragmented.
And it's in those fragments that the real horror starts to show itself.
We begin to realize that Alicia's silence might not be about guilt or insanity, but a desperate attempt to protect herself from something much darker.
The question shifts from why is Alicia silent to who is she trying to silence? And that's where Michael Ides really nails it. He's so good at weaving all these different threads together, making you doubt everything you thought you knew.
It's like he's constantly pulling the rug out from under you. Just when you think you've got it figured out, he throws in some new detail that changes everything.
Remember that little detail we talked about, the mark on Alicia's wrist? That tiny thing becomes the key that unlocks everything.
Yeah, it proves that she didn't overdose on pills like everyone thought she was injected with morphine, and then the focus shifts to the one person who had access to that morphine.
Theo, the pieces start falling into place. His obsession with Alicia, his desperate need to control her story, his willingness to manipulate everyone around him. It's scary.
And the scariest part is that Theo actually believes he's doing the right thing. He's convinced he's Alicia's savior, the only one who really gets her.
His delusion is so powerful, he's completely blind to the damage he's causing, blinded by this twisted sense of love and justice.
And then in one final act of manipulation, Theo reveals his own diary, confessing to his crimes, but trying to justify them, trying to make himself look like some kind of tragic hero.
It's a masterful performance. Even in his confession, he's still trying to control the narrative, trying to shape how we see him.
But it's also a moment of truth for us as readers. We have to face the fact that we've been part of Theo's delusion. We trusted him, we followed his lead, and now we're left questioning everything.
It's a brilliant commentary on the nature of truth and how easily we can be tricked by the people closest to us, by those who seem like reliable narrators.
So what's the point of this whole twisted story? What do we take away from it?
I think The Silent Patient forces us to confront the darkness that's not just in the characters, but in ourselves and our relationships, in society as a whole. It reminds us that we can't always judge a book by its cover, and that even the most seemingly harmless people can have dark secrets.
It's definitely a book that sticks with you long after you've finished it, making you question everything you thought you knew about people, both the ones you trust, even your own potential for darkness.
But even with all the darkness, there's a little bit of hope, too. Alicia's silence, her refusal to play Theo's game, that becomes her weapon.
Her silence exposes him for who he really is and forces him to show his cards. It's a powerful reminder that even when you're facing trauma and manipulation, there's strength in silence, a quiet defiance that can speak volumes.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I keep thinking about this. We've been focusing on the psychology of the story, but what about the art? Alicia's paintings are like a visual language. They express what she can't say out loud.
Yeah, it's like the author is challenging us to go beyond the surface, to look deeper into the meaning and imagery of her work, to find clues hidden in the brushstrokes and colors.
What if the real key to understanding Alicia, to solving the mystery of her silence, isn't in her words, but in her art?
That's a great point. It makes us think differently, not just passively reading, but actively engaging with the story, becoming detectives ourselves. And that's what makes The Silent Patient so captivating and memorable. It's a story that demands our attention, makes us think, makes us question, and makes us explore the hidden depths of the human mind. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.